Chrysler, SCA, Stellantis, however you wish to or should call them as nowadays, aren't exactly known as being anywhere near the current forefront of automotive innovation. While it's rather humorous and entertaining to watch them shoehorn ridiculous power into their vehicles for fun, to the more normal automotive consumer, they're more known for being a pretty egregious offender of milking the cows beyond dry when it comes to their car models, and for turning the Fast and Furious franchise into one big commercial. On the flip side, I think it's pretty fair to say that Tesla are the first that come to mind for many when asked about who they think is the current front of the pack when it comes to the latest and greatest in cars. Now that electric vehicles are in the mainstream spotlight and the hip new thing, other legacy automakers, including household name and longtime Chrysler domestic competitor General Motors, have joined in on the battle for the EV buyer's wallet. While Stellantis offers a pretty decent selection of compelling EVs in the European market, Mopar fans across the pond looking for an electrified option never got any of these. We're left to choose between one of two plug-in hybrid options, one of which is an impractical solid-axle off-roader, and the other involves being seen in a minivan. The topic of plug-in hybrids in itself can be controversial nowadays, but I think there is a time and place for them. However, they definitely aren't groundbreaking new technology. While some fully electric vehicles and more intriguing range-extended options are supposedly in the pipeline from Chrysler, it's definitely been a long and slow time coming. But what if, in an alternate timeline and in another universe somewhere, they were right up there with the top players today, battling with or even having surpassed the likes of Tesla? Maybe a pipe dream for some and a nightmare for others, but what if I told you that reality almost existed? Nowadays, we look back on the original Tesla Roadster as being the sports car that made driving electric cool, and GM was right there back then too, introducing to the masses the idea of a plug-in hybrid with the original Volt. What many today seem to be unaware of when those cars or time period is brought up though, is how Chrysler was not only at the party, they had actually encompassed both sides themselves and more, in the division called ENVI, short for Environment and New Vehicles. The star of ENVI was the Dodge Circuit Full EV. If it looks a lot like the original Roadster, well, that's because it is indeed based on the exact same Lotus platform that underpinned it, though with Chrysler's own drivetrain underneath, a battery sourced from A123, and a surprisingly fitting design in line with other Dodge vehicles. Though the Circuit was technically a prototype at that point, it was running and driving, and even held track events where it was driven to its full potential, and at least 3 had been built. An early yellow car that still sported the original Lotus bumper and rims, an orange car that gave it Dodge's signature crosshair grille, and a black one with a white interior, which is the main one that seemed to actually be driven at press events. Photos also exist of a yellow car that does have the crosshair grille, though it's not known if this is a separate 4th car or just the same one that had the bumper changed. At the same time, ENVI also showcased a variety of different plug-in hybrid versions of then current models, including the Chrysler 200 sedan and the Jeep Patriot small SUV. They weren't optimized ground-up designs like the Volt was, but were a step in the same direction that gave consumers the peace of mind of having an onboard generator in addition to acceptable in-town EV range in normal-looking cars they were familiar with, and would have allowed Chrysler to continue making regular gas versions alongside them, theoretically reducing cost.
Chrysler had been quietly working on an electric vehicle program since late 2004.
We saw a number of bellwethers that were happening. Certainly the regulatory climate started to move us into the direction of electric vehicles, zero-emission vehicles, but we also took a view of the consumers and what they wanted in their purchase consideration. And driving environmentally social responsible vehicles were becoming much a higher priority for our consumers. So at Chrysler, we took a very different approach than others. We said, if it's going to be a major part of our portfolio in 2020, we need to start now. There was a sense of urgency to move forward quickly, and we took a very broad-based approach. We weren't looking to create a single EV, to hallmark our company around a single EV.
Perhaps more shocking were the 2 other plug-in hybrid vehicles that ENVI showcased, the Jeep Wrangler and the Chrysler Town & Country. Yes, what would take many years to later become the 4xe and Pacifica hybrids respectively already existed way back in 2008. Unlike the 200 and Patriot, these vehicles seemed much closer to production, already having gone through extensive testing and with functioning prototypes shown to the public and the media. Both of these vehicles were running and driving and achieved approximately 40 miles of EV range. There was even a fully electric version of the Town & Country shown in some testing footage, intended for use by the United States Postal Service. So what happened? Well, for starters, like with many companies at the time, the global recession wasn't kind to Chrysler.
Today, after consulting with my auto task force, I can report that the necessary steps have been taken to give one of America's most storied automakers, Chrysler, a new lease on life. It's a partnership that will give Chrysler a chance not only to survive, but to thrive in a global auto industry. Fiat has demonstrated that it can build the clean, fuel-efficient cars that are the future of the industry, and as part of this agreement, Fiat has already agreed to transfer billions of dollars in cutting-edge technology to Chrysler to help them do the same.
In 2009, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in order to keep operating, and when they emerged afterwards, their new CEO simply didn't believe that there was any success to be had in following through with the EVs. In the notion that they would only account for 1 or 2% of vehicle sales by 2014, they just didn't see pursuing the segment as being worth their time. And so, the ENVI project was scrapped, the team and division disbanded. In the few years following, Fiat Chrysler would end up dipping their feet twice more into the electrified side of things, but only resulting in a plug-in hybrid Ram pickup truck in 2011 that would never reach production, and the all-electric Fiat 500e, which did enter production in 2013, although only really as a compliance vehicle, sold only in 2 states and in limited numbers, with a rather short range and complete lack of fast charging support that didn't make them super compelling to own. The legacy of the ENVI program does remain today, and Jeep has recently expanded the 4xe powertrain to include the Grand Cherokee. However, the fact that it dates back so far really goes to cement just how late to the party they ended up being. There was so much potential had they followed through with their plans. Tesla believed in the idea and the technology, they pushed through with it despite the growing pains, and it got them to where they are today. Even GM's significantly less effort eventually got them somewhere, with the Volt eventually leading up to the Bolt EV once GM felt they were able to provide people with sufficient range for an affordable price, and it ended up being a popular choice for consumers despite some compromises such as charging speed. To think about how far they fell, that one of the furthest behind in electrification today could have been one of the industry leaders. I just find that to be really fascinating and an often overlooked example of how the game has changed for legacy automakers who were unable or unwilling to keep up. I'm genuinely curious to see what the future holds for Crylantis, and I guess only time will tell. As of the making of this video, it seems like the production electric charger has recently started getting spotted in public and making the rounds amongst automotive journalists. Living in pickup truck happy Alberta, the fully electric and range extended, or plug-in hybrid Ram trucks seem even more interesting, so I look forward to seeing those arrive. I don't actually care for pickup trucks myself, but I think that if the Ram Rev looks like it does in the photos, that's actually a pretty good looking truck, and around here I'll probably be seeing them a lot. But that's all. I just felt like making a short video essay at an evening. My girlfriend suggested this topic after I had brought it up a few times in person and online in EV communities, and I realized that there hasn't been much talk about it, so I'll talk about it. I find it interesting. So I hope it was also interesting to at least somebody out there. Anyways, thank you for watching.